All right, hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us. This time, we're going to tackle something that's, well, kind of fundamental to how we write and even how we think. We're talking sentences.
Sentences, huh? Back to basics.
Exactly. But as always, there's more to these basics than meets the eye. We've got a whole stack of sources here, and they're all geared towards explaining sentence types. Like simple, compound, all that jazz, in a way that even a sixth grader could get their head around.
So breaking it down for the grammar curious out there.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Even if you think you've got sentences down pat, our mission today is to really dig into the why behind them. Like, why do different sentence structures even matter? How do they change the way we communicate, the way we understand what we read, even the way we think about ideas? That's what we're going to uncover.
Sounds like a plan. Though maybe we should start with, well, what is a sentence, right? I mean, we use them all the time, but can we actually define what makes a sentence a sentence?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we kind of know it when we see it, right? But putting it into words.
Well, our sources actually do a pretty neat job of that. A sentence is basically a complete thought all wrapped up in words. And like any well-packaged thing, it's got some clear markers. It starts with a capital letter, right? That's like the signal flare saying, hey, new thought incoming. And it ends with punctuation. A period, a question mark, an exclamation point that kind of tells you how to read it, how to feel it.
Right, like the punctuation sets the tone.
Yeah.
But what about the stuff in between those markers? What makes those words actually add up to a complete thought? That's got to be more than just random words strung together.
Absolutely. And that's where our dynamic duo comes in. The subject and the predicate.
Oh, yeah, those guys. Classic grammar stuff.
They're the backbone of every sentence. The subject is all about who or what the sentence is focused on. It's often the first thing you encounter, like the main character of our little grammatical story. Then you've got the predicate, which tells you all about that subject, what they're doing, or their state of being. And here's the clincher. The predicate always includes a verb. That's your action word. Or a word that describes a state of being, like is or seems.
Okay, so like the dog barks. Dog is our subject, the star of the show, and barks is our predicate telling us what that dog is up to, with barks being the verb, the action word.
Exactly. And our sources have this handy-dandy table that lays this out even more clearly. They've got examples like the cat sat on the mat. The subject who we're talking about is the cat. The predicate, what they're doing is sat on the mat, with sat being our verb.
And even if the subject or the predicate has a bunch of extra words describing it, like the fluffy striped cat sat gracefully on the mat, we can still pinpoint those core parts. The fluffy striped cat is still our subject, just with more detail, and sat gracefully on the mat is still our predicate, with sat being the action.
Right. It's all about finding that subject-predicate pair. That's the heart of any sentence. And once you grasp that, you're ready to tackle the different types of sentences, which is where things get kind of interesting.
Yeah, because it's not just about subject meets predicate, right? It's about how you combine those parts, how many of them you've got, how they're all linked up.
You got it. And traditionally, we talk about four main types of sentences: simple, compound, complex, and compound complex.
All right, let's break them down one by one, starting with the simplest of the bunch, simple sentences.
Now, the word simple can be a tad misleading here.
Right, because simple doesn't necessarily mean short, does it?
Not at all. A simple sentence can definitely pack in a lot of detail, but the key is it's got one subject and one predicate expressing a single complete thought. It's like a self-contained unit of meaning. You can load it up with descriptive words, but it's still just that one main clause, that one core idea.
So give us some examples to make this super clear.
Okay, our sources have a bunch. Here's a classic. The sun shines brightly. Subject. Sun, predicate, shines brightly. One complete thought, nice and straightforward.
Okay, that one's definitely simple, no arguments there. But what about a sentence like, the dog barked and wagged its tail? That's got two actions in it, barked and wagged.
Good catch. But even though there are two verbs, it's still one core idea about what the dog did. We got one subject, dog, and one predicate that includes those two actions. So it still fits the definition of a simple sentence.
Okay, so even if there's some internal action going on within the predicate, as long as it's all about that one subject, it's still simple.
Precisely. And the same goes for a sentence like, my friend and I played video games. Here, we've got a compound subject, my friend and I, but still just one predicate, played video games, describing what we did together.
Got it. So multiple things can be happening, but if it's all within that one main clause, one subject-predicate pair, it's simple.
Exactly. Our sources also have examples like, the cat sat on the mat, birds fly in the sky, my brother likes to read. See, Simple and to the point.
Simple, but not necessarily boring. They can still convey useful information, like this one. Professor Maple's intelligent students completed and turned in their homework. That's a mouthful, but it's still a simple sentence with a single subject and a single, albeit slightly complex, predicate.
It is, isn't it? Shows you how much you can pack into a simple sentence while still keeping things grammatically straightforward. But now, let's move on to the next level, compound sentences. This is where we start combining those single, independent clauses to create more complex meanings.
Okay, so if a simple sentence is like a solo act, a compound sentence is more like a duet. Two separate parts working together.
That's a great analogy. And the way we typically join those two independent clauses, those two complete thoughts, is with a coordinating conjunction.
Oh yeah, those are the M fanboys, right?
You got it. For and nor, but, or, yet, so. These are the words that act like little bridges between two independent clauses, showing how those thoughts relate to each other. And when you use a fanboy's conjunction, you usually put a comma right before it to signal that pause between the two clauses.
So it's like taking two simple sentences, slapping a comma and one of those fanboys words in between, and boom, you've got yourself a compound sentence.
Exactly. Like, I like pizza. That's a simple sentence. My sister likes pasta. Another simple sentence. But we can join them with and to create a compound sentence. I like pizza and my sister likes pasta. Now we've got one sentence expressing both of our preferences.
Okay, so what other examples do our sources give to illustrate this compound sentence magic?
Well, there's, it was raining, but we still went to the park. Both, it was raining and we still went to the park, could be sentences on their own, but the but shows the contrast, the unexpected turn of events.
Makes sense.
Then we've got, would you like to play outside or would you rather stay inside? A choice presented with or. I like watching Marvel movies, but my friend likes watching DC movies. Again, using but to highlight a difference. And finally, the shoplifter had stolen clothes, so he ran once he saw the police. Here, so shows the consequence of that first action.
I'm noticing a pattern here, it seems like. But and so are pretty popular choices for creating compound sentences.
They are. They're great for showing those contrasting ideas or cause and effect relationships. But remember, all those fanboys have their own specific jobs to do, so you want to choose the one that best fits the meaning you're trying to convey.
Right, right. The right tool for the job. But you also mentioned there's another way to connect those independent clauses in a compound sentence, one that doesn't involve the M boys.
Ah, yes. The semicolon, our trusty friend. If those two independent clauses are super tight, like best buds in terms of meaning, you can just use a semicolon to join them without any conjunction. Our source gives an example. The dress is too tight. I don't think I'm going to buy this. It just flows seamlessly from one thought to the next.
Okay, so compound sentences. Two complete thoughts, either glued together with a fanboys and a comma, or just a semicolon for that extra close bond. Got it. Now, let's venture into the realm of complex sentences, where things get a bit more intricate. What sets these sentences apart?
Complexity comes from adding an extra layer of information. And no, it's not just about making them longer. A complex sentence still has that main idea, the independent clause that can stand on its own 2 feet. But then it's got at least one dependent clause, which, as the name suggests, can't stand alone. It needs that independent clause to make sense.
Dependent clauses, those are the ones that often start with words like because, when, if, right?
Exactly. Those words are called subordinating conjunctions, and they're like signposts that tell you, hey, this thought coming up isn't a full sentence on its own. It's adding some extra info to the main point. Other words like this are although, since, while, after, before. They all create that dependent relationship.
It's like the dependent clause is the sidekick to the independent clause, the main hero of the sentence.
I like that. It's a good way to think about it. And depending on where that sidekick clause is placed, you might need a comma or not.
Oh yeah, that can be tricky.
The general rule is if the dependent clause comes before the independent clause, you use a comma to separate them. Like in because it was raining, we stayed inside. Because it was raining is our dependent clause, starting with because, and it leads into the main idea, we stayed inside, which is our independent clause.
So comma, when the sidekick comes first, setting the stage for the hero's entrance.
Precisely. But if the independent clause comes first, you usually don't need a comma. Like in, we will go to the park after we finish our homework. We will go to the park is our main idea. And after we finish our homework is the dependent clause, adding that extra condition. No comma needed in this order.
Okay, so comma or no comma depends on who's leading the charge. the independent or dependent clause.
Right. Now, our sources have a whole bunch of complex sentence examples like, when the movie starts, please be quiet. If you finish your homework, you can play outside. Though we were tired, we played another game of football. All showcasing those dependent clauses with their subordinating conjunctions. And there are even more. You can also start dependent clauses with relative pronouns, like who, which, or that, which often link back to a noun mentioned earlier. But for now, we're focusing on those subordinating conjunctions.
Right, because those subordinating conjunctions are like those little flags saying, hey, dependent clause coming through. Now brace yourselves, everyone, because we're about to enter the boss level of sentences. Compound plex.
This is where it all comes together.
It's like the ultimate sentence showdown.
Exactly. In a compound complex sentence, we're combining the features of both compound and complex sentences. So you got to have at least two independent clauses, those complete thoughts that could stand alone, at least one dependent clause adding that extra layer of info. It's like a sentence on steroids, packing in multiple ideas and connections.
Okay, so we're looking for both those embodies or semicolons from compound sentences and those subordinating conjunctions from complex sentences, all in one sentence.
You got it. It's like a grammatical puzzle, but once you see the pieces, it's not too hard to figure out. Let's take this example. Because it was cold, I put on my jacket, and I also grabbed my hat. See? Because it was cold. That's our dependent clause, starting with because. Then I put on my jacket. That's an independent clause. And I also grabbed my hat. Another independent clause joined to the first one with and. Compound and complex all rolled into one.
It's like a sentence that's multitasking.
Exactly. It's showing you a sequence of actions plus the reason behind them. And our sources have more of these multi-layered beauties, like after school we went to the library, but it was closed, so we went to the park instead. It tells a whole little story in one sentence.
These are making my brain work. What other examples are there?
Well, there's, although we knew it would rain, we did not carry an umbrella, so we got wet. Again, dependent clause starting with although, then two independent clauses joined by so. And then finally, even though Sam was exhausted, he went to the gym and lifted weights for an hour, and then he went home and cooked dinner. Dependent clause with even though, and two independent clauses connected by and.
So basically, if you see a sentence that just seems really long and has a bunch of different parts going on, there's a good chance it's a compound, complex sentence.
It's a safe bet. But remember, it's not just about length, it's about those specific grammatical features.
Right, right. Okay, so for those of you listening who are now maybe feeling a little overwhelmed, like, how am I supposed to keep all these sentence types straight? Good news. Our sources have actually given us a super clear strategy for becoming sentence detectives.
They have. It boils down to two key questions. First, how many complete thoughts, those independent clauses, does the sentence contain? Second, what are the connecting words, the conjunctions, that link those thoughts together?
Okay, so step one is to count those complete thoughts. 1, simple sentence. 2, linked by a embo major or a semicolon, compound sentence. 1 complete thought plus at least 1 incomplete thought hanging off it, complex sentence. And 2 or more complete thoughts and at least 1 incomplete thought, compound, complex. We've got our categories.
You've summarized it perfectly. And then you use those conjunctions as clues to confirm your suspicions. Simple sentences won't have any conjunctions joining independent clauses. Compound sentences will have those embodies or a semicolon doing the heavy lifting. Complex sentences will often have those subordinating conjunctions like because, when, or if, signaling the dependent clauses. And complex sentences will have a mix of both types to manage all those clauses.
And if you're still feeling unsure, our sources have actually provided this super handy table that lays it all out.
They really thought of everything, didn't they? The table basically asks you a series of questions about the sentence. Does it have one complete thought? Yes. Simple. 2 complete thoughts joined by handboys or a semicolon? Yes. Compound. And so on. It's like a flowchart for identifying sentence types.
All right, so we can now confidently spot them in the wild. But let's back up and talk about why this matters. Why do we care about different sentence types? Why should anyone even bother with this stuff?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's not just about being a grammar whiz. It's about understanding how sentence structure affects meaning, how it influences the way we read and write. Imagine reading something that's just one short, simple sentence after another. It would feel choppy, basic, maybe even a little childish. But by mixing in those longer, more complex sentences, you create a flow. a rhythm that keeps the reader engaged and allows you to express more nuanced ideas.
So it's about creating a more interesting, a more sophisticated reading experience.
Exactly. It's like music, you know? You don't want every note to be the same length and rhythm. It would be boring. Varying your sentence structure adds that musicality to your writing, makes it more engaging and enjoyable to read.
And it's also about being able to choose the right structure to convey the specific meaning you have in mind.
Right. Like, if you want to show a clear cause and effect relationship, a complex sentence with because or since does that beautifully. Compound sentences can show two ideas that are equally important or related. And those short, simple sentences, they're great for emphasis, for delivering a powerful statement. Longer sentences, those complex ones, they're like the panoramic view, allowing you to paint a more complete picture.
So it's about having a whole arsenal of sentence types at your disposal to really shape the reader's experience and understanding. Can we look at some specific examples of how this plays out in real writing?
Absolutely. Here's a simple sentence. The little girl smiled. Straightforward and to the point. Now, a compound sentence. She loved to read, but her brother preferred to play outside. The but highlights that contrast. For a complex sentence, because the sun was setting, they decided to go home. The because explains the reason for their decision. And finally, a complex sentence. After they finished their game, they went inside because it was getting dark and their mother had called them for dinner. Multiple actions and reasons all woven together.
Wow, that compound complex one really tacks it all in. And our source even provides a short paragraph that shows how all four sentence types can work together to create a dynamic and engaging piece of writing.
It does, and it's really fascinating to see how the different structures create a sense of flow and rhythm. It starts with, the dog wagged its tail, simple and direct. Then, it was happy to see its owner, and it jumped up and down. Compound, showing the dog's excitement. Next, when the owner knelt down, the dog licked his face. Complex, explaining the sequence of events. And finally, because the dog had been alone all day, it was extra affectionate, and it followed its owner everywhere he went. Compound complex, giving us a whole picture of the dog's behavior and the reason behind it. You can really feel the difference compared to just a bunch of simple sentences.
Absolutely. Now, on our quest for sentence mastery, we can't forget about those common pitfalls, those little errors that can trip us up. What are some of the typical sentence mistakes that writers make?
Well, two very common ones involve not quite getting that joining of complete sentences right. Those are run-on sentences and comma splices. A run-on sentence is basically when you just cram two or more complete sentences together without any punctuation or connecting words to separate them.
It's like a sentence that just runs on, hence the name, right?
Exactly. Imagine seeing something like, the cat was sleepy, it curled up on the rug. That's a run-on. To fix it, you need to add either a comma and a coordinating conjunction, the cat was sleepy, so it curled up on the rug, or a semicolon to show that close connection. The cat was sleepy, it curled up on the rug.
And a comma splice is similar, but it uses just a comma to try and join those complete thoughts, which isn't quite enough, right?
Right. It's like it's trying to be a compound sentence but missed a step. So instead of the movie was exciting, we all enjoyed it, you'd need to either add a conjunction, the movie was exciting and we all enjoyed it, or use a semicolon. The movie was exciting, we all enjoyed it.
So watch out for those commas trying to do more than they're supposed to. And what about the third common mistake?
That would be the fragment, the sentence that's not quite a sentence because it's incomplete. It might be missing a subject, a verb, or it might be a dependent clause that's been left stranded without its independent clause buddy, like because it was raining heavily. That's a fragment. It needs that main clause to complete the thought. Because it was raining heavily, we stayed inside.
Okay, so we've got our run-ons, comma splices, and fragments, the unholy trinity of sentence errors to avoid. But our sources also go a step further and address some of the FAQs that people often have about sentences.
They do. They really try to cover all the bases.
Like, what is a clause exactly? I know we've been using that word a lot, but it's good to have a clear definition.
Absolutely. A clause is simply a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. It's like a mini sentence that can either stand alone as an independent clause or be part of a larger sentence as a dependent clause.
And the difference between those two types of clauses is crucial for understanding all these sentence types, right?
Totally. An independent clause is like a boss. It can stand on its own. It expresses a complete thought. A dependent clause is more like an employee. It needs that independent clause boss to give it direction and make it a complete sentence.
And speaking of bosses, here's a question that might be on some people's minds.
Mm.
Do we always need to be aiming for those big, impressive, complex sentences?
And the answer is thankfully no. Good writing is all about variety. It's about choosing the right sentence type to fit the purpose and meaning you want to convey. Sometimes a short, simple sentence is the most effective choice. Sometimes you need a complex sentence to show a specific relationship. It's like having a whole toolbox of sentence types and knowing when to use each one.
It's like you wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb, right?
Yeah,
The right tool for the right job.
exactly. And if you're looking for inspiration for examples of how different writers use these sentence types effectively, the best thing you can do is simply pay closer attention to the things you read every day.
Become a sentence detective in your own reading.
Exactly. Notice how writers construct their sentences, how they use different lengths and structures to create different effects. It's a great way to develop your own sense of style and learn by example.
And to wrap up our FAQ section, our sources address that age-old question. Why are there even so many different types of sentences in the first place? It can feel kind of overwhelming sometimes.
I know, right? But as we've been discussing, it's all about having options, about being able to express yourself in precise and nuanced ways. Each sentence type offers a slightly different way to structure your thoughts and connect them for the reader. It's like having a whole palette of colors to paint with instead of just black and white.
So variety is the spice of sentences, just like in life.
Exactly. And to add a little extra flavor to our discussion, our sources have even included some fun facts about sentences.
Oh yeah, hit us with those fun facts. I always love a good grammar trivia tidbit.
All right, well, did you know that the average sentence length in English is somewhere between 15 and 20 words?
Really, it doesn't always feel that way, especially when you're reading a really long and complicated sentence.
I know, right? But that's just an average. Some sentences are super short, some are super long. It all balances out in the end.
And it's crazy to think that just changing the order of words in a sentence can completely change its meaning.
Absolutely. Word order is super important in English. Like, the dog chased the cat tells a very different story than the cat chased the dog, even though they use the same words.
It's all about who's doing the chasing.
Hmm.
And speaking of short sentences, did you know that even a single word can be a complete sentence sometimes?
It can. Like, if someone asks you a question and you just say yes or no, that's a complete sentence in that context. It's understood what you're referring to.
It's like the ultimate minimalist sentence.
Exactly. And it's worth remembering that different sentence types can actually evoke different feelings or moods in your writing. Short, simple sentences can create a sense of urgency, of immediacy, while those long, flowing, complex sentences can be more reflective, more thoughtful.
So it's not just about conveying information. It's about crafting an experience for the reader.
Exactly. And the more you understand about sentence types, the more you can control that experience both as a writer and as a reader.
So for everyone listening, the big takeaway here is that understanding sentence types isn't just about memorizing a bunch of rules, it's about gaining a deeper appreciation for the building blocks of language. It's about seeing the power and the beauty in how we construct meaning, sentence by sentence.
And as you go about your day, I encourage you to pay closer attention to the sentences you encounter. Not just the words themselves, but how those words are arranged, how those sentences are structured. Think about how those choices affect your understanding, your emotional response, even your enjoyment of the writing.
It's like becoming aware of the architecture of language, the way it's all put together.
Yeah.
And once you start seeing it, you can't unsee it. It changes the way you experience everything you read and write.
It does, doesn't it? It's like a whole new world opens up.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of sentences.
My pleasure. Until next time.